My name is Walid Mukarzel.
My name's Lueda Zain. No such thing as a typical week.
I think my dream job, if I wasn't working for P&G, would be...
Welcome to Meet the Leaders. I'm Katie Mills, and I'm getting to know a little better some of the senior members of our team at P&G Northern Europe. So let's welcome my guest today.
Hi, my name's Chris Young, he, him. I'm wearing a blue shirt, I've got mostly brown hair and blue eyes. My current role is HR Vice President for Northern Europe, and I've been with the company for a little bit over 22 years.
What keeps you here?
I'd say there are two main reasons for why I'm still here after all these years. The first one is you get to work with, I've got to work with and still work with, amazing people who inspire me to do better and deliver more each day. And the second reason is that I just continue to learn loads. Every day is different. It's a cliche, but it's definitely true in my role. And that variety of responsibilities means that I can continue to learn and to grow, which I find really, really rewarding.
What brought you to P&G?
So I studied HR as a postgraduate degree up in the north of England in sunny Newcastle upon Tyne, and then worked for a little bit less than 2 years in a ship repair business, so a very traditional industry. Learned a huge amount working in that kind of environment, mostly by making mistakes. And then really I was attracted to join P&G by the structured training, learning and development and career opportunities that P&G provided and still provides to me today.
What's the best thing about P&G that you would tell someone considering joining the company?
The best thing about the company for me, you could choose many different things. If I was going to choose one, I would say the culture. The culture is one of support, help, encouragement, all with the goal of helping each individual be the best that they can be. So that culture of nourishment and development is what I find, incredibly positive about the company.
I'm sure you'd agree there's not really a typical day at P&G. So can you tell me what you've been up to this week?
So over the last 7 days, I've had a variety of things across my desk, which is fairly normal. Actually, last week I had the pleasure of being in Geneva for the first time in nearly 3 years as part of some regional strategy deployment sessions. Whilst there, I also got the time to spend some time with our Chief HR Officer, Tracy Grabowski, where we engaged on some HR priority work. And then this week, I've had the pleasure of a Northern Europe steering team meeting this morning, and tomorrow I'm visiting one of our factories, our plant in London. So getting time to spend there with the HR team and the plant manager to talk through some of the work that they're doing there. And then at the back end of this week, I'm trying to find some time to prepare for some HR workshops that we've got next week on the plan for the future and some of our priorities for the HR function in Northern Europe. So a variety of things, and it's that variety which is really positive as well. One of the things that is, I think, unique about HR compared to most functions in the company is that you get access to and exposure to and engagement with employees, individuals, people in the company at all levels, from the most senior managers through to our entry-level people, and both provide just like really important insights that to be a successful HR manager you need to listen to understand and be connected to. So it's that breadth of access that I found really interesting in HR when I started this work and still enjoy it today. So yeah, and I also enjoy being in the factory, so it's always fascinating to be there.
What do you do when you're not in the office?
What do I like to do when I'm not in the office? So there's probably a difference between what I like to do and what I'm actually able to do. So what I like to do is play sport, travel, and relax. In practice, what I spend most of my spare time doing, like many of us, is carting our son around to various social and sporting activities at the weekend. So mostly football, mostly cricket now in the summer, and rugby in the winter. But it's good fun, and he enjoys, and it's good fun to see him growing and developing as a young sportsman. So that's what I spend most of my spare time doing.
Learning from failure is key to future success. Could you share an example from your career with us?
Probably the one I would give is probably from when it's probably 10 years ago, maybe. Relatively junior HR manager working in a new assignment in the commercial part of the P&G business, leading a transition of a new company that we had acquired into the P&G family. And as part of that, I was responsible for managing some of our information and consultation processes. And long story short, I had my critical path in my mind. I had my deadlines that I wanted to deliver, and the mistake that I made was trying to force the group of people who were working with me on that transition, on that process, to close the process down before they were ready to, because I was driven by, what was in my mind rather than what they were seeing as the priority and what they were valuing. And so they very clearly gave me the feedback that they weren't ready to close down that process, and they wanted to engage more and discuss more the questions that they had in their mind. And for me, it was a really good example of being in it for them, and more broadly in it for our employees, and putting myself in the shoes of our employees as we're designing products, as we're launching programs, as we're trying to connect with our people. I've tried not to make the mistake of forcing my timings and agenda on others too much, but it was a fairly painful lesson to learn at the time.
Having a growth mindset is critical. How would you define it, and what do you do to keep yourself in this mindset?
Yeah, so for me, a growth mindset is probably two things. One, it's about being open to new possibilities, and secondly, it's about always seeking to improve, to make progress, to do better, and to learn. For me, currently, what I'm trying to do is take that mindset into my work and broaden the areas of learning that I'm engaging in outside of the kind of more traditional HR space. So trying to learn even more about some of the challenges that we're facing from a business perspective, and then bringing that back into new thinking, new possibilities, and being open to those new possibilities in the work that we deliver in HR. Sometimes, myself included, we can be a little bit closed in terms of how P&G does things, and I need to and want to be more open to the possibility that actually we might need to evolve and do things slightly differently if we want to have a proposition that makes sense and resonates with our employees of all levels and generations. Those were probably the main two things.
If you weren't working for P&G, what would be your dream job?
I've always had this slightly strange interest in the National Health Service. So if I was looking to do similar type of work, I would be interested in doing HR work for the NHS. It might not last very long, as I would get frustrated by the bureaucracy, but at least part of me is still quite interested in that organisation, the culture there. Beyond HR, I think an area that really interests me is sport, and I'd love to coach and take that capability to a new level and see how I could help people grow in the sporting arena.
Where do you turn to for your inspiration?
I get my inspiration from osmosis, really. So I find myself being like a camera with the kind of the shutter open and observing stuff as it happens, and that can be inspiration from being in meetings with colleagues in a P&G environment. It can be inspiration from information that I digest on social media or in the newspaper or in publications. So I learn mostly through that process of taking information in and processing it, and then thinking through how I could adapt that. So it's more really the style rather than any particular source as such. But I appreciate the opportunity to be able to take that information in, percolate on it, mull it over, and then decide what to do with it and how to perform differently with that information in mind. And of course, everybody learns differently and takes inspiration from in different ways. But that's kind of what makes me tick and how I get energy.
What would you like your professional legacy to be?
My professional legacy, good question. It's definitely a bit of a cheesy cliche, but I want our organization, our employees, the people who come to P&G day in, day out to feel that they have made a difference, to have come to P&G and learned more and grown more in P&G than they would have done had they joined any other company. I want us to be a company that grows people better than anybody else, and that's what we should stand for. So, to the extent that me and my team can enable that to happen, that would fill me with a lot of satisfaction and enjoyment, and I'm sure people will tell me whether that's true or not as well. So I'll get to gauge that quite quickly. What's
the most important thing you've learned over your career?
The most important thing that I've learned in my career, probably, I would offer two things. The first one is that our colleagues have nothing but a positive interest in positive intention in mind. So they are there to help. They are there to support. They want us to succeed. And they're there to help and to enable that. So rely and leverage the network is probably the first point. The second point is it's a company that if you have the mindset that you are ready to grow, learn, take on new responsibilities, and be lucky enough to be given some of the chances that I've had, then the sky's the limit in terms of the kind of opportunities that you can take and the opportunities that you can grow with. So mindset and be open to learning and the possibilities that the company can provide. And the company is big enough and broad enough to really provide that breadth of opportunity that I found really positive. So those would be the two main things.
So what does force for growth and force for good mean to you, and how do you bring this mission to life in your everyday work?
So a force for good and a force for growth means, in my work, enabling our organization to see the impact that they can have internally as we look to create a more inclusive, equal organization that better reflects society, and linked to that they can see and be involved with, either in terms of the businesses that they lead or in terms of the organizational work that they are involved with, the impact that working from a company like P&G has on society, on our communities, with our consumers, with our shoppers, and it's about enabling that impact and that contribution and helping people see the power that they have and the role that they have in all of the work that they do. That's what it means for me.
P&G have been around for over 185 years. What do you think is the secret of the company's longevity?
I think the secret to the company's longevity is something that I was reminded of this morning. So I was in this leadership team meeting and we were talking about some of the challenges and opportunities in the next fiscal year and beyond. And actually it led to a conversation on, as long as we stay grounded in the company's principles, we'll be fine and people will understand the choices that we're making. And I think that's an example of the kind of conversations that are happening across the company now and probably since the company began 180 odd years ago. And for me, as long as the company stays anchored against the company's values and principles, the future will be equally positive. So for the company, our principles are what guide us, and whilst we say that, it actually is true. And I think that's the thing that will set us up well for the future as well.
Thank you for watching this episode. To watch the full series, go to pg.co.uk, or to find out more about careers at P&G, visit pgcareers.com.